is Ethan Webster. I'm the Innovation Policy Specialist here at Startup Genome. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us through some key insights from our Global Startup Ecosystem Report in 2021. I'd also like to highlight a few key insights from various regions with a focus on Central and Eastern Europe, as well as to look at a few subsector trends that we're seeing from previous years as well. So firstly, who we are. Startup Genome is the world's leading research and policy advisory firm when it comes to startup ecosystems. In the last 3 years, we've assisted more than 100 governments, cities, and international organizations to improve startup ecosystems and general conditions for startups. Our core mission is all about the disaggregation of the tech revolution. This is in the form of ensuring the best practices and the best policies for startup ecosystems are spread to all corners of the world so everyone can participate in the tech revolution. And inevitably what this means is the diversification of opportunities. Not only is improving diversity and improving the inclusion of individuals into the tech space the right thing to do, but also from our studies, we've seen that the higher the diversity, the higher the inclusion an ecosystem has, actually the increase of success we see, an increase of valuation as well. So ultimately, these are our objectives, is to make sure that when you think about tech, you're not thinking about just the top 2 or 3 locations, but really that this is an opportunity that anyone can have. During our work, we've built a global network of policymakers and practitioners who are leading in the field of tech. As you can see, we've added clients across all the continents, minus Antarctica, in 45 countries to date. This helps us to not only be up to date with what the best practices are policy-wise and startup-wise, but also to bring these pieces of knowledge to our clients as well. Generally speaking, the way that we like to engage with people is firstly sharing those best practices and engaging our network and ensuring that people can connect where they couldn't otherwise. But also, it's about branding the opportunity that your ecosystem has. What is your USP? What is the reason people should be coming to you? The bread and butter engagement that we like to have is the full ecosystem assessment. And what this is the deployment of our survey, the methodology of which we've been working on for more than a decade to make sure that you can understand what gaps exist within your ecosystem, not only absolutely, but also comparatively to other ecosystems in a similar stage. And that's really the power of Startup Genome, is our ability to leverage our global reach of data to make sure that you're making comparisons that make sense instead of trying to repeat what a top ecosystem has done. We also will assist our clients in strategy and implementation to make sure that the recommendations and the practices that we share can be implemented by public bodies. So I'd like to take a moment just to review the GSER 2021, what we've seen coming up new, what are some changes to pay attention to, as well as what is changing. So the GSER 2021 was released last month in September. And this is the world's most comprehensive and widely read piece of research on startup ecosystems globally. We have the widest reach through our partnerships with with a global entrepreneurship network, with Crunchbase and Dealroom, as well as other leading sources of secondary data put on top of our own unique data set that we've collected over the years. So our report, with over 300 partners in our various ecosystems, we've put in 280 ecosystems in the 2021 version of the report. We've also had particular focus on the top 30 ecosystems, as well as who is emerging, where is the growth happening. But also new to this year's report is a particular focus on regionalization. So gone are the days where when you would speak about the tech ecosystems, this was mainly happening in North America. But now there's particular focus on what is happening in Africa, what is happening in the MENA region, and our report reflects that. Also new to this report are particular insights from founders and from investors, as well as accelerators and incubators. So what we wanted to make sure people got out of this report was whether you're a founder yourself, whether you're a policymaker or an investor, there's a particular viewpoint from your perspective, and there's something in this report for you. The GSER is for free. Feel free to visit our website. You can download it. You can take a closer look at all the ecosystems, at all the rankings. But I'm going to go now and talk about the specific results for 2021. Firstly, looking at the general trends of startup ecosystems. So, of course, the elephant in the room is the pandemic. In March of last year, there were a lot of question marks about what would happen to tech. Would there be a mass die off of startups as the funding environment shriveled up? But actually, the exact opposite happened. So after the first few months, instead of being derailed, tech was a major part of the solution. So what we saw was a massive increase in funding rounds globally, a massive increase in valuations, as well as overall tech adoption increasing as more people were getting digitalized, more people were getting connected, and the ability to connect with one another digitally was a main solution to how things were kept afloat during the pandemic. A few additional silver lines that we saw happening during the pandemic was the decreased importance of geographic location. So, generally speaking, when it came to getting a funding round or when it came to finding a mentor, you were more or less limited to the ecosystem that you were based in. And now, given that people were sitting at home for the majority of the year, funders and mentors and these networks were more inclusive of people that weren't necessarily sitting in the same city as them or even in the same country. So this was definitely a major opportunity that saw the tech ecosystem grow. From 2021, the world's startup ecosystems have a valuation of 3.8 trillion US dollars. This is up 1 trillion from last year and is about equal to the annual GDP of Germany. So this is a massive portion of the general economy now. Additionally, when you look at the big five tech companies, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, their market share is now at $8 trillion. Now, although this is a good thing and we're seeing a lot of growth, there still is a high concentration towards the highest performing ecosystems in the world. So right now, you'll see there's still a lot in the valley, as well as the fact that we've seen a lot of concentration in these top ecosystems. And again, our mission is to break this up and to bring these lessons to other parts of the globe. Overall, in 2021, 63% of total startup ecosystem value is found in the top 10 locations. Although this is a lot, this is down from 87% 10 years ago. So this is definitely a sign of growth, and this is a positive. When it comes to the top 20 ecosystems, I'd like to just quickly go through them. North America is still dominating. We have 9 of the top 20 startup ecosystems in the world in North America. Not a lot of movement in the top spots. However, we see an increasing trend in the continued growth of the Asian startup ecosystems. So now for 2021's report, there are 6 of the top 20 coming from Asia, and some of the biggest moves in overall ranking are coming from Asian ecosystems. Europe has 4 of the top 20, and we're seeing a lot of growth coming from places such as Amsterdam as well. A few key insights. Tokyo saw one of the largest uh, growth as far as ranking, moving up from number 15 last year to number 9, as we see in Asia an increase of VC funding, an increase of large exits as well. Shenzhen also is a new addition, the only new addition to the top 20 this year, and Philadelphia in the US moved up 15 spots to break into the top 30. What do all of these top ecosystems have in common? There's a certain level that they're all operating on that not every ecosystem is. Firstly, they're incredibly globally integrated. These are places that are able to attract startups wherever they're founded into their ecosystems and to integrate them into an existing global network. Not only uh, are they able to attract startups, so each of these leading ecosystems globally have their particular niche, have their particular subsector specialization that they're known for, where they have a disaggregate amount of growth. So they are able to have a particular advantage where other ecosystems were to struggle. Also, if you look at the diagram, this is what a general attrition funnel of a startup ecosystem would look like. The leading ecosystems have a very thriving level of this at all stages. So in struggling ecosystems, you'll see that as startups have difficulty to get additional funding rounds, the pyramid here will get thinner and thinner, whereas the top ecosystems are able to successfully scale startups up to high exits and to recycle those resources back into the local ecosystem. In 2021, we've seen 91 separate ecosystems produce a unicorn now, and the trend for unicorn production continues upwardly. We had a few cities have their first unicorn in 2020, including Mexico City, Dallas, Busan, and Houston. When it comes to VC funding as well, from 2016 to this year, there was a double amount of total VC funding from 2016 until what we're seeing now. Additionally, when we look a bit longer term, in 2004, almost 85% of all VC funding went exclusively to US companies. And now, today in 2021, this is only 50%. So definitely increasing the diversity of opportunity for startups to get funded, not just in top ecosystems, but anywhere. What I'd like to do now is quickly look at a few of the leading regions before I move into looking closely at Europe. So in general, North America makes up 50% of all startup ecosystem valuation for the second year in a row. Also, 60% of all the unicorns created in the last year were in North America. However, this is highly concentrated. So the top 4 startup ecosystems in the United States, in the North American continent, count for 70% of the ecosystem value in North America. When it comes to Asia, when you look at growth year by year in terms of ranking in the GSER, there's a huge upward movement overall. What we're also seeing is an increase of global connectedness of these East Asian ecosystems, with the exception of China, just because their local market is so large that they're able to produce unicorns looking just domestically at their own market. So what I'd like to do now is to take a particular look at what is happening in Europe, as well as Central and Eastern Europe for the GSER in 2021. So as you can see, the top 5 ecosystems in Europe this year are all in Western Europe. Funding rounds have increased quite a lot. We've seen an increase from basically all the startup ecosystems globally, and Europe follows this trend as well. So again, 149 unicorns were created in 2021. only 13 of which were in Europe. However, the overall rate is increasing. And in fact, some positive news. Hopin, which is powering this summit today, set the record last year for quickest journey of a European startup to $1 billion valuation in just 17 months. So definitely there's an acceleration happening. Looking specifically at Central and Eastern Europe, uh, we're seeing an increase in later stage funding, which is a sign of increased maturity of the startup ecosystem as investable startups are getting more money and are reaching later stage deals, which means that valuations are increasing overall. Um, Leading ecosystems are Estonia, as well as the fact that in 2021, startups founded in Central or Eastern Europe were valued at a total of $200 billion. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're still here, but the ones that were founded have now reached $200 billion in valuation. I'd also like to encourage everybody to check out a recent report released by Deal Room that focuses specifically on this region and goes into detail as far as funding and notable funding rounds for 2021. Deal Room is one of our closest partners. I believe they're also speaking tomorrow. One of the positive signs of infrastructure of a robust startup ecosystem is the R&D capability, looking specifically at deep tech, which as a subsector is where most of the valuation and increase in funding is coming from. So when we look at leading universities, we see actually that Poland has 26 universities mentioned in the Shanghai ranking, which shows that the capacity for innovation, the capacity for spinouts into deep tech startups is quite high here. Additionally, we've included Austria just as a measurement for what a general salary would be in Western Europe. So we see that in most Eastern European countries, the general cost of coding talent is about half that, which is an opportunity in its own right because you get more bang for your buck for the funds that you raise in Eastern Europe versus in the leading ecosystems of Europe. When it comes to life sciences specifically, we see of all of the Central and Eastern European countries plus Austria, Austria accounts for 36%, with Poland in second at 31%. This is a total of 61 rounds of early stage funding that has gone into life sciences startups in Central and Eastern Europe from 2015 until now. I want to highlight the reason why this is quite important. In the GSER, we're also measuring the growth in each subsector. And year after year, starting from 2018, the highest growth we're seeing in deep tech startups. So this is AI, advanced manufacturing and robotics, blockchain. Right now, the largest percentage increase in growth when it comes to funding rounds as well as in valuations, it's all coming from deep tech, which is about 30% of the growth total when you look at the tech sector in a whole. So generally in the GSER, these are the types of highlights that we're giving. We also go deep into our member network, highlighting various subsectors and the USP of all the different ecosystems. This is something that we've done for people on all continents. This is something that we could do potentially in your city. So I encourage everyone to download the GSER for more information on this year's findings. And if you'd like to know more about any of the data, if you have any questions for me, or if you'd like to speak to us more, please reach out via email. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.